Welcome everybody down the line. I'm Nathaniel Dell, and who we have today is Bill Buchanan, the CEO and General Manager of Northwestern Cooperative. Bill, it's great to have you here with us today.
Thanks for having me, Nathaniel. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. So looking forward to it.
The first thing I want to ask you is, how long have you been in charge of Northwestern?
Okay, so Northwestern REC is I've been in the role for just a little over 2 years, and that is all new to me. Actually, I'm not a guy from the electric industry, but I am from the co-op world, so understand the cooperative structures and the philosophies behind them.
Okay, what's your day-to-day from the minute you walk in till the minute you walk out?
So what I do, our office and everybody's offices are a little different, and I know the co-ops around the state have some different different times and different schedules and how they work. Our office is open our work day is from 7 to 3:30, and I get to work about 5:30 in the morning. That's a typical day for me, is get there at 5:30. That gives me an hour and 15 minutes to kind of get in the right mental state, the right mindset to be doing the job all day. And then just because of the nature of the business, it kind of, once the day started, it kind of takes its own direction and kind of runs its own direction. And we just kind of, it's a very fluid organization. Things come up, we change gears, and I think that's just probably pretty common across a lot of the co-ops. The weeks of my board meetings, every month we had the board meeting, and those weeks are a little more structured, reviewing the financials, going through board reports, whatever we're going to be discussing in the board meeting. And I'll kind of tie that into, little bits and pieces throughout the week when I have some time here and there. But otherwise, I'm a pretty open door person, so I get a lot of, I don't want to say interruptions, that's not really what they are, but a lot of diversions and distractions during the day. So, but that's kind of always been my style, I guess. So that's how our day looked.
Now, you said you weren't quite from this industry. Bill, can you give us an idea of where you came from, where you started at? How'd you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to grow up in a rural telephone company in South Central Iowa. And so from a really young age, I always compare it to family farming, because I think that's the closest correlation I can make. It's like growing up on the family farm, and at a young age, you're doing things. I was plowing cable. We had everything buried in our systems. I was plowing cable when I was in junior high and high school. We built 13 systems of cable TV. We built our telephone plant in 3 of our systems, and installed digital switching equipment all in that time I was going through high school and college. And so I came up on that side of the construction side, into cable splicing, into switching, into some of the transport stuff, and then later on in fiber, but always a construction kind of background and a infrastructure development background. But I've worked for boards pretty much my whole career. I started managing a small telephone co-op when I was 23. So I'm about 30 years now of being in that CEO role, keeping in mind that, in the smaller companies, you're also it's a working manager role too. So, but always dealing with the board of directors, always dealing with an elected board of directors from the membership. So then I got into, we got into working with one of our GNTs in Illinois, and they were doing a big fiber project, or working on a big fiber project to connect all of the distribution co-ops to the GNT. And I got really active in that project, and I just loved it. Loved working with the electric co-ops. And I've been doing telephone my whole life. And like I said, kind of like a kid on the family farm, you get to the point you're like, I want to do something different than farm. And so I decided I wanted to try kind of moving into the electric space, and I've just really enjoyed it. I just learned a ton so far. And would have been nice not to have COVID for, more of my career in the electric industry has been under COVID and under normal circumstances, but I'm looking forward to some of that, some of that going back to normal and learning, getting back out and learning a few more things.
So you really in your experience have more of that get up and go hands-on kind of attitude, more of that than you do the I went to college and got a degree and kind of book smarted my way into my career.
Yeah. So not that it's a good thing to admit, but I when I went to college and I didn't really like college at all. So I didn't finish. I went back out, and what it was I didn't really think I wanted to be in the telephone industry. And I thought I wanted to, go into some big company or work in some, corporate kind of a fashion. And I realized really quick when I went to college that probably was going to be better off doing what I'd always had grown up doing. So I went back into that and I just really liked it, but I knew it was important to finish college, just not because I needed it. I was already into management, but it was because I started it and I needed to finish it. So did that a little bit later in life.
So what with your education, you had your whatever, your bachelor's or associates, whatever you have. Were you happy with the education you received from your college, or did you find it lacking in some ways?
It's just, it's just everybody's different and we all learn different ways. And I think it's just whatever our gifts are. Mine is more of a hands-on learning. If I see things, I'm kind of a visual learner. If I see how something's done, it makes a lot more sense to me than reading about it. And I think when you think about education, there's the formal education and there's the informal education, and both are, I think, equally important. And I went ahead, I finished my bachelor's degree. I'm now just in another month, I'll graduate with my master's. I have went to a graduate school it was called the Graduate Institute for Cooperative Leadership. And it was based around, the co-op business structure out of University of Missouri. So formal education is not foreign to me, but it's just not the way I like to learn. I like to learn by seeing and doing. So I do a lot of, I like to read, and I like to, leadership books and things like that. But I think when you think about leadership there, I'm reading a book right now, Mark Moore. He's a pastor out of Phoenix, Arizona area, down in that area. And he made a comment I think is really good. He says in his book, he says that great leaders are incessantly perpetual learners. And I think it just means is to be a good leader, you constantly have to learn. It's just you can't ever think you know everything, because once you get to that point, you're pretty well done and you're plateaued. So
It never stops. Learning never does stop.
no, it shouldn't. I think some people, and again, it doesn't have to be that formal learning. It can be learning on all different levels, but I think everybody learns a little different, and as long as they keep applying themselves and learning, I think it's a good thing.
And in our industry, as linemen and superintendents, we learn by seeing and doing more than we do anything else, especially to become a first class lineman. As you climb the ladder, it's all hands on.
Yep.
There's not much book work at all, if any.
Yeah, it's and like when I was learning how to splice cable, it was really similar to it was one of our older cable splicers took me out, and I spent a summer with him, and I would have to watch him, and he would critique, what he was doing, be doing it slow enough that I could keep up. And then I did it and he would critique me, and then got to the point that I could go out myself. And I think that's really kind of the way we're supposed to learn. That's the way as human beings, we're designed to learn, is by somebody teaching us, and we do it, and they watch, and then we get to do it ourselves. So
in your career, is there anybody in your past that you could definitely say, that person kind of led me on the path I'm on. Is there anybody that was really influential in being a part of helping you be who you are today?
Yeah, growing up in a family company, obviously family, my dad was the president, and of course I worked with cousins, I worked with uncles, and in those roles, you already have those relationships because they're family relationships, and they kind of pour over into the workplace. And I think those are great. Along the way, though, I would say a lot of times, if I look at my whole career, I'm amazed at how many times I have, in trying to mentor someone, I've always believed in having younger people work in a different generation. Those generational differences. I think it's important, especially in the service industry, that we understand what that next generation, how they think and how they communicate and how they work. And it amazes me how much I'm thinking I'm mentoring them, and in reality, they're probably mentoring me a lot more. I always learn more from those people than they probably learn from me. So it's pretty interesting.
Is there any instance where you can look back on your career and say, this was my turning point? This is where things changed and led me to where I am today, to CEO of Northwestern.
What kind of led me to CEO at Northwestern was I was really in, and I think it's a common thing, but I just was ready for something different. And it was I was doing well in the telephone industry. I enjoyed it. It was a very active company. I mean, we were going from our copper plant to our fiber plant. And so we were very active and busy doing things all the time, but it was almost that repetition and monotony. It was like it just wasn't changing up enough. And I wanted to do something different, and having, then, life gets in the way too. So I have two boys that are, that at the time, a couple of years ago, were just getting into that college age, and just kind of uncertainty what their careers were going to look like. It was a good time for me to say, if I was going to switch careers, it was a good time to do it. And that was really kind of where I found out about the job at Northwestern, and I applied and interviewed and got it. So I don't know that there was a real solid turning point, but just that point in your life where you feel like, you kind of feel drawn to doing something different. And if you think about timing, it never works out right. I mean, you can never make the perfect timing, but it seemed like a good time to kind of transition from one industry to another. And since they were both co-ops, it's really not that difficult to transition from the business side. It's more difficult from understanding the technology. But
so you haven't been there, you haven't seen much employee turnover in your time there.
So, it's one of those things. I think co-ops, in a lot of them, Northwestern for sure, I can attest to that. It's kind of that cradle to grave job. Once you get into the co-op, it's a lot of people stay from the day they get out of high school or out of technical school, and they stay until they're till they retire. And so we don't have a lot of turnover. We've had a few people retire, but not, that's not turnover because they were going to go find another job or anything like that.
So what do you think is maybe one of the most important character traits for a good lineman, for a person to become a good lineman?
Well, I think, integrity is a good one. I think honesty. The thing I think about a lot of times, linemen it's kind of this one role in the company where you're out in the field, you're out, the jobs are coming in, but you're kind of developing your own schedule throughout the day to some degree, and just being honest about, where you need to be next, or keeping that the honesty. I had a couple of them I had written down. I think being respectful, and then just being dependable. Sometimes I think it's just, everybody has, again, life gets in the way, but being dependable and knowing that the co-op can count on you is a really important thing.
What's your take on the word respect?
So I work off of like it's been over the years I kind of developed on my own. It's like 5 core values, and the first one is perspective, and I think perspective is really, really important. And it's not my perspective to you. I mean, that's important. If I have a different perspective on something, I think it's important. But what's even more important is I understand that you're always going to have a different perspective than me. And I think if every employee, whether it's the lineman, the member services representatives, the marketing people, as long as they understand that, we're kind of a product of our upbringing, and so we all have different experiences and different things that give us different perspective, and just understanding the perspective is important. And I think the second one is respect. So perspective, respect, engagement. I think people that are engaged in their jobs are, a lot of those values just fall into place. If you're engaged in your job and you're doing it, I think I like your thing you said, bringing energy, the positive energy in your video that you did. And I thought it's a great thing. That's the same as being engaged. I mean, it's being engaged in your job is having that positive energy. And then the other ones are servitude, because not servitude, that's a bad word, servitude, but that servant leadership kind of attitude, or that, the attitude of wanting to be a servant. And then the last one I think is really important to cooperatives, and that's the stewardship. And that we're working for our members, and our members own everything that we're working with. They own our trucks, they own our facilities that we use, and we just have to be good stewards of it. It's important. That's how we, if we're good stewards of their assets and their co-op, it's probably going to give them the best rates they're going to get, because we're being full of that. And whether it's me as the CEO, or whether it's some in our accounting department, or our linemen, just taking care of the tools, taking care of the equipment, and knowing that if you maintain it well, it's going to last longer. So the respect part is in there. And I think what's important to me is that respect is very much a two-way street. And I think sometimes we get so focused on what we do, in our own individual positions, that we forget that, and I think I can see it in our linemen. I can see it across the organization. Sometimes we forget the value of everybody else within the organization, and how kind of all the pieces of the puzzle have to work together. And I just think it's important for everybody to try to have an understanding. COVID was a great test for that, because we, for so long, so many of us have been kind of blown out of the office and working from home. A handful of us, including me, work in the office every day. A lot of us have gotten accustomed to working at home, but yet our line crews, they still have to come in and get material. And so, like, it's a different perspective for them to come into work and see there's not as many cars. So it's the natural assumption is, well, nobody's doing anything, but yet the work orders are still getting pushed out. The staking sheets are still getting laid out for them. The materials are still getting rounded up and ordered, and the paychecks are still going out. So, I mean, all of the same things still happen. They're just happening in a different way. And I think part of respect is understanding that it doesn't have to have that same appearance, but just be respectful, that people, have the respect of knowing that the people that you work with are doing their job too. And I think that's a tough one for anybody, I think. But it's a two-way street all the time.
I agree. I truly believe that sometimes people do forget that other people do have specific jobs. They get all caught up in what they're doing themselves, and it's a shame to be, self-centered, but I think we concentrate so much on ourselves. We do kind of put away what everybody else is doing and forget that they're just as important as we are. Because, I mean, we go to work to receive a paycheck, and if nobody's writing the checks or doing the paperwork so we can get our checks, then
yeah,
everybody's got to do their job. or nothing gets done. It is.
Yeah,
It's kind of like the circle of life. Everything goes around, and all the gears have to turn in order for the machine to work.
very much like, yeah, that's a great analogy. It kind of is its own little ecosystem. Everything has to work and exist together, coexist to be functioning correctly. So I think that's a great analogy.
Now,
But
is there anything that you would like to share, or that you think you'd like for guys coming into here, like apprentices or new employees? Any advice you have for them?
I think it's great when especially apprentices, set your goals, have some goals. And I know for me as a CEO, and I know a lot of the CEOs in Pennsylvania anyway, and guys that I know across the industry, if you're not afraid to set your goals and grab somebody like me, or grab one of the senior linemen, or grab one of the chiefs, and I think it's really important that if people know what your goals are, it's a natural tendency to want to help somebody achieve their goal. I believe that people will, if they know what your goal is, they'll help you achieve it. So for an apprentice, I say, go in there, set goals. Don't be, overly vocal about it so much. But I think the other thing is to learn, just watch, learn. I know me growing up, every single day that I went to work, I learned something. Sometimes it wasn't good. Sometimes it wasn't something I wanted to hold on to, but I learned something. And you kind of, as you get a little more wisdom and age, you start kind of throwing out what doesn't make sense and hold on to what really matters. And I think that's about the best advice I could give an apprentice. As far as guys that are seasoned, and just always put safety, the safety of your coworkers. I think that's a respect thing too, respecting the fact that they've got families at home, they've got kids at home, they've got parents, they've got their clubs they're involved in, and just like you do, you just want to respect that you're respectful of them and watch out for their safety, and respect enough to get them home safe at the end of the day. And hopefully they're doing the same for you.
I don't think a lot of people realize how much of a family type oriented business this is, because and I was a contractor at Bedford for many, many years before I was lucky enough to get hired. So I knew all the guys, I knew who most of their families were. I was, talked to my line superintendent for years before he was line superintendent. So I knew those guys pretty well. But after I was hired at Bedford, I didn't understand how much of a family oriented, industry it is, until I started to go to schools for the PREA, your lineman training and everything else, and started to meet guys and find out it's not just my cooperative. And I found that a lot of the apprentices that have been hired since I've been hired really don't understand that. They come in and they're, oh, this is a 8-hour a day job, 5 days a week. I'm going to get to climb, be outside, and that's about it. They're surprised at how great. I think it's great the way everybody communicates and talks, and it's a very close-knit community, even though it's spread across the state, a little bit in New Jersey and New York, but it's still a very close-knit community. You remember the guys you went to school with, and you remember all the instructors, and you remember the people you meet when you're on storm and other cooperatives. That amazed me how tight-knit and close the entire cooperative community is.
Yeah, it really is amazing. And I think that's fundamentally, that's kind of the foundation of a cooperative, is that you really do, you develop those relationships that are more than just those working relationships, where you're what people's kids are doing, when they've got grandkids, new grandkids. I mean, that's kind of we've got a number of guys right now in our line crew that are starting to become the, grandpas. And so it's fun to hear what the grandkids are doing and how they're growing up. And I mean, I'm sure they get that some in the IOUs and the big companies, but I don't think probably to the level that we do in the cooperative world. I think you're exactly right. It's a really good family environment. But that being said, to those businesses, sometimes family things aren't always the greatest things to deal with either. So in all fairness, I mean, we have those hiccups too, but.
Well, you got to take the bad with the good. You don't get it for free.
That's right. You got to have the bad with the good. That's right.
So we're down to the nitty gritty, Bill. Who's the man behind the desk? What do you do in your spare time?
So I am, obviously I'm a husband first. My wife and I, we just enjoy spending time together and doing things together as we can. And like I said, I have two boys. One is 22 now and one is 20. And so being a dad I can't think of anything I've enjoyed more in my life than being a dad. And so and I think about like all of we got some young linemen that they're boys or they're kids, not boys. I mean, they got daughters too, but they're all in that, that young age where they're real busy and they've got, we got to go to hockey or we got to go to baseball or we got to go to that. And I love that stuff because that's how it was. And we always worked well. So we could all be very involved with our kids' upbringing. And now that my kids are older, we do a lot of things outdoors. We got four-wheelers, we go kayak and we go mountain biking and we enjoy being out in timber as much as we can. And I would say, I not as much here now just because COVID hit and I haven't gotten quite as active in my church, but back home I was very active in my church in the men's ministries. And I really enjoy that because I learn a lot there. I learn a lot from people that are having struggles. I learn a lot with, whatever their trials might be, how do you relate to those things? And when you're managing people, those life events and those things, those bad dips and those valleys that people fall into, they happen for people at work too. And if you have a good understanding of it and actively listening, I think it's something you can be helpful with at work. And I even think, linemen, when you see one of your coworkers or, your other linemen struggling, there's probably something behind it. And it never hurts to just ask them, is there something going on that you can be helpful with? So, but
that's something that I've realized. Like you, I grew up in a family company. I worked for my father straight out of high school and worked for him for years till I was hired at Bedford. And linemen aren't as hard as the media or the public would have you believe. They're just like everybody else. But I really get a kick out of that you see you'll see guys wearing t-shirts, you'll see guys wearing jackets and stickers in their back windows of how badass linemen are. But we're just like everybody else. It's not like we're some amazing superhero because we can climb a pole. We are just like everybody else. We're doing our job. We're dedicated. We do what we're told, and we try to do our best. But I always get a kick out of that. Somebody would say, "Wow, you're a lineman." I am a lineman, but you know what? I feel bad sometimes too. My stuff breaks down, and sometimes I have troubles at home. But it's I'm a human being also. And a lot of people, I think, they look past that. They see what you do for a living, and they say, "Well, he's a lineman, or he's a general manager. He's a CEO. He does this. He doesn't." That's all we see is on the outside. They don't ever get to see the inside or the backstory. And that's why when I do my interviews, like with you, I like to get a little bit of that, who are you? What kind of person are you? Instead of just, well, he just sits back in the corner and runs the show.
Yeah, no, I really do. I mean, I enjoy knowing what's going on in people's lives. I think it's connecting with people at a life level is just so much more important than what we do. I mean, that makes up who we are. And I think that and with the linemen, it's, they can come in and be cranky about this, or, the weather's nice out, so they're not, that's kind of, I kind of make a joke about that. They're always at their best, and they're always the best team when things are the worst. And it's kind of a neat thing. And it's kind of like, well, that's why they're so much more equipped to really help each other with those challenges in life. I mean, because that's it. I mean, life has its ups and downs, just like our lines do. And I think, that's when you really see guys pull together, and these guys, that sometimes maybe don't get along the best in a working environment. Boy, as soon as everything falls apart, that's when they're just one big team working together. And it's really encouraging for me to see that. I think it's a fun thing, but it also gives me that little bit of sense of humor that, when the weather's nice, they're not. That's why I always kind of joke around with that. And then, the other thing about their qualities, when you ask them about their traits, I think there has to be just a little bit of, you got to be a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. I think linemen have to have that a little bit edgy, and, they have to have that little bit of edginess to them that kind of makes them run all night when things go wrong. That's the part that keeps them going and keep pushing on. And I think it's impressive, to say the least. So,
Bill Buchanan, everybody. What a fantastic interview. What an interesting guy. He grew up in a different industry, climbed the ladder in a different industry, made his way to being a manager in the telecommunications industry, and then, moved over into the cooperative industry as a manager. Great guy. Real nut and bolt, hands-on kind of guy. Love talking to him. He had a lot of insight on what it takes to be a good lineman, what it takes to make a great lineman. Honesty, integrity, so very important in our line of work. You have to be honest. You have to be believable. You have to have guys trust you, and you build trust with honesty and integrity. I love the fact that he's a real down-home family guy. Loves to spend time with his wife and kids in the outdoors, which seems to be common among guys in this industry. Is they're very outdoorsy. They want to be outside. They enjoy being in the outdoors and in nature. So I want to thank Bill for his time. Like I said, awesome interview. Really enjoyed it. Hope to talk to him again. And if there's anything anybody wants to see, drop me an email, nddowntheline@gmail.com. Anything you want to hear, any questions you might have, I can send to Bill or any of the other CEOs that I've interviewed in the past. Drop me a line, let me a comment in the comments box. Other than that, everybody out there, stay aware, stay safe, and I'll see you down the line.